All right, good morning. It's about 8:30, so let's go ahead and get started. Ms. Ogden, if you'll call the roll.
Senator Albritton, Senator Bell, Senator Cornley, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Elliott, Senator Figures, Senator Gavan, Senator Orr, Senator Singleton, Senator Smitherman, Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver, Senator Barfoot.
Here.
None, and we have a quorum.
All right, we've got a quorum. First on the agenda is SB 301, Senator Wagner. I think in my this makes 5 years of being in here. I think this is the first time that I've seen you in Judiciary, so welcome. It's tricky to begin with.
Thank you. I requested this bill come before this committee.
Yes, sir.
I've been involved in legislation like this, handling the seatbelt law a long time ago. In 1999, I handled the bill in the Senate to pass the seatbelt law, so that kind of opened the door for these other kind of issues. I've been asked to handle this bill for years. This is a very emotional issue for me, and you and I have talked about it, Senator, and you know why. But I agreed this year to handle it, and I've probably said no, I don't know, 7 or 8, 9 years, but I had an issue that came into my life in 1979, and I'm going to share it with you, and I don't talk about this often, but I had a young son, 18 years old. I bought him a Jeep for graduation because he was going to Jacksonville State on a football scholarship. And he was coming home one night, and we'll never know what happened, but I lost my 18-year-old son. And that's the reason these kind of issues have been important to me, okay? And I'm going to show you something that I don't show often, but that is Scott Wagner, 18 years old. And that's the reason I'm standing here today. I don't need to go into detail about this bill. I agreed after many years to sponsor this legislation, and I'm serious about it, and hopefully this committee will be serious. Y'all know the details of this legislation a lot better than I, but I'm really on the outside looking in, just telling y'all it's important to me. It's all about Scott and the other people that have lost their lives because of no seatbelt, distracting driving, you know, the list goes on. So that's the reason I'm standing here today. It's an emotional issue with me, and it's an important issue. And I finally said yes to handling this legislation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I've told my story. You know why I'm introducing this bill after being asked for many years. And I don't know if y'all have any questions, but y'all know the legislation better than I do. But I'm standing here as an emotional father, and that's my story, and that's why I'm handling it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I know we committee members, I think I saw a couple of hands raised. Senator Smitherman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I definitely understand when something touches you as close as severe as what happened to your son. I by no means the situations that I expressed reached the level of what took place to you. And I'll just say this quickly to the committee. When I was talking yesterday at the mic, and I was talking about how a young person is treated and why we needed due process, it was just as personal to me, not on that level because I didn't lose anyone, but it was just as personal to me because the person I was talking about was my own grandson. So if he was treated that way, I can imagine how other kids were treated. So it's real personal to me. I had to say that for the committee more than for this here. It's just as personal to me as you see that is to him. So you can understand where I am. Now, having said that, in '99, I don't know if you remember this or not, as we were talking about the seatbelt, that I was chairman of Judiciary. Exactly. And I don't mind saying in here, I was one of the people who didn't want to do that at that time. And you probably remember that. You convinced me, by the way. But I was one of the people, and I was to the point where, remember, I was chairman of Judy for 10 years. So I'm just one this, no, I didn't want to do it. It was have a bother to put the seatbelt on and everything else. But things happen in our life that move us. And in my situation, the young man that you saw here that I said my grandson, his mother was in the car with me. We was getting off of Green Springs, going down to UAB. And if you notice on that exit, it's a big steel pole there with the lights, if you're anybody from up on that area. And she told me, she said, Dad, do you know Newton's theory of gravity? That's my daughter sitting in the car with me. She was a young girl. And I said, yeah. She said, your body moves at the rate of this car. She said, when we hit that telegram post, the car is going to stop. She said, but you're going to go straight through that window because your body is moving 60 miles an hour and there's nothing to stop it but the window. I reached over and put my seatbelt on. You may not remember this, but I called you and I said, we ready to pass this bill. And that's how we got seatbelt law in this state now because of you and because of that experience I had. Well, I feel the same way about what you're saying now. I was like you in the past years about this bill. I even joked about it. I said, you mean say I can't set my phone on waves? I'm coming down here to everything else. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm where you are right now. I want you to know that. And at the proper time, Mr. Chairman, I want to move for favorable report on this bill because I understand what you're saying, and you may save many, many people's lives by having this bill. And I pledge to be a part of it with you, whatever I can do to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Smithman. I think Senator Bell had a comment, then we'll go to Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Van, and then I see Senator Weaver has a question or comment. Senator Bell.
That's why I was given what I think is a friendly amendment to add to the list of exempted items, and the definition of wireless devices adds safety, the word safety equipment in there. And I think it's a friendly amendment. My understanding, somebody mentioned it to you yesterday, and I'd like to offer that amendment to the exempted items under definition of wireless.
Senator Bell, could you explain that amendment, how it fits?
I think they're talking about, it includes the backup cameras and things from the manufacturers. It just includes, and I know we don't have the technology today from my understanding from them, but it just goes ahead and puts that in there so that and they may have explained it more to you yesterday because I got it coming in this morning, but it's just the manufacturers want to add safety equipment into the wireless definition. Yeah.
Should be a definition.
And that's what I've sitting here looking because I got it 2 minutes before I walked in. Or we can hope.
Mr. Champion, would you mind coming up? I think that Senator Bell or some of the committee members may have a question about that amendment, potential amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Graham Champion. I represent the Alabama chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we strongly support this bill. Honda is, in looking at the bill, absolutely supports it, but they felt like since backup cameras were not listed in the exempted devices, they wanted to put the word safety in addition to other devices that were there, just to make sure that it was covered as an exempted option. They believe that a backup camera is truly a safety device in a car, and they just wanted it. It may not be needed, Senator, but they wanted to make sure that they had something like that covered.
So this is in reference to if you are using a backup camera
Yes,
in a
ma'am.
car, that is exempted and you're not penalized for the use of that.
That is correct. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you for that explanation. Now I understand.
But would you be able to use
Thank
it
you,
while you're
Graham.
driving?
You can't use it in
They
driving.
don't let you use it. I mean, the car won't let you do things. So
Not while you're backing up, no. Well, you could use your phone, but they just want to make sure that the backup camera was counted as a safety device, basically.
But I thought his bill was about you driving and being distracted and using other things and doing other things while driving. So I guess my question is, would that even apply to this because you're not trying to do it while you're driving?
Maybe only,
That Senator Figures.
The van.
Senator Figures, I think the other thing is as technology develops, there may be something else that is put in as a safety device, and they just want to make sure that it's covered so we don't have to come back and bring this bill back before the legislature and amend it and do something then.
Well,
Take care of it now.
Sure. I'm just not so sure. I mean, for me, I like to see definitions of things so there's no need or it's not room for so many various interpretations. And that's why when you say safety, that could just be anything. I mean, anything, something that's attached to the car or not. I look at my pistol as a safety device. I mean, I'm just saying, but I just think it needs to be a definition, and going forward before it's before it's passed on the floor, that we should get a definition for what a safety device is, so there's no room for various interpretations. Okay,
all right.
thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bell's offered that amendment, second by Senator Smitherman. All in favor of adopting that amendment? Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. That amendment is carried. I think Senator Coleman Madison, do you have a question or comment, or was that been?
Senator Wagner for bringing this bill, and it wasn't a selfish thing because of all the years of the past that I remember the incident with your son. But this is a bill that impacts everybody. And we all know that seatbelt saves lives. And of course, because of your initiation with the original bill, we've gone to a whole lot of other things as far as mechanisms that save lives in schools and what have you. So I just want to thank you. It seems like the only way that we are really going to stop, and hopefully people will take note, that we are going to stop as we drive down 65 or wherever we're going, drive 75 or 80 miles an hour, using all these different technologies. Everybody else is doing the same thing, and so somebody has to pay attention, but we know that these types of things do save lives, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have also an amendment I would like to offer, and I have worked with the chairman on this amendment. And again, I would like to thank you for bringing this bill, and I'm so sorry for your loss. On page 3, line 68, the bill is named in memory of 3 people. It says Leah Grace Tarvin and CC and J. So CC is actually CC Lunsford. She was my constituent. Her mother, Michelle, has been a tireless advocate for this bill and has been in all the high schools, has taken her car to show it to high schools, and I've gone with her there in my district. So I also know that she's worked with Jay Kendall's family, and I think it's appropriate that we don't just have CC and Jay, that we add their full names of CC Lunsford and Jay Kendall.
Thank you. Amendment's well received. Is that a motion to add that?
Motion
I'll
to add
second that. Any opposition to using previous unanimous voice vote? No opposition. That amendment is adopted.
Thank you.
I also have what I believe to be a friendly amendment, should be in your package. And that is an effort to, certainly there are times when you have physicians that are responding to emergency situations or out on the road and are attempting to get to that, either to the emergency room to treat a patient. And so this amendment just simply adds on after line 184 on page 7, insert the following: by a licensed physician while responding to an emergency medical situation.
I move.
Motion for favorable on the adoption of the amendment by Senator Smitherman, second by Senator Bell. Any opposition using previous roll on that? All right, hearing none, that amendment is also adopted. Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Wagner, I'm sorry that this is bringing up bad memories for you about Scott. I can't conceive of that. I remember back when I never even met Phillips Luchenkirchen, but I probably can't say his name right, but I remember just being overwhelmed when he got killed because he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. Because he could have been my kid, about the same age. And I just can't even conceive of what that loss is. Sometimes I don't know why, maybe morbid, just fear or whatever, think about that. But, and this, I will say, you knew there was going to be a but. This bill is better than what has come before us before and what this committee has voted down before. You know, but I still think this is very impractical. And I know just like the next bill that's going to be on our agenda, I didn't draft. I know you didn't draft this one. And I don't expect you to be able to answer any questions about the topics that I'm going to bring up. But I will say, I mean, you know, on page 4 on line 96, a person shall exercise due care in operating a motor vehicle on the highways of this state and shall not engage in any actions, which shall distract the person from the safe operation of the vehicle. What's that mean? I tell you, I've had come closer to having a wreck fooling with my radio than I've ever had with my cell phone. I got something that's about the size of an iPad in my truck. And most new cars have it now. And you want to talk about a distraction? It's built in the vehicle. There are people out there that do not have the luxury of having a vehicle like I drive and that many of you drive that has Bluetooth capability. And as expensive as my vehicle may have been, it doesn't work all the time. And I've got to use my phone and I've got to touch it to use it. And it says that we cannot physically hold or support with any part of the body. Well, so I guess I got that console right there and I'm going to keep my hand on that. So now rather than doing this right here, I'm going to be having my hand on the side. It's got a loophole which it had before about using GPS. So I guess now when I drive a block, I'm going to cut my phone on GPS. And so I'll have it on GPS. It does have an exception for voice-based communication. It's automatically converted by the device to be sent as a message in written form. In other words, telling Siri to send a text to somebody. If you're in a wreck, how's it going to know? I mean, maybe that technology is there, but how are they going to know I didn't type that in? How are they going to know I use Siri? Down on line 132, you can't use more than a single button on a wireless telecommunication to initiate or terminate a voice communication. Who's keeping up with that? I mean, it is better. There are some things in here now that I've got several things. Okay, marked. I mean, you shouldn't watch a video. You shouldn't record a broadcast or a video while you're driving down the road. If you're driving a truck, you shouldn't get up out of your seat to go reach and grab your phone. There's things in here I can support, but I can't support the bill in the way it's form it's in right now.
Thanks, Senator Van. Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand where you're coming from, Senator, and I know that distractions, and probably most of us have been in an accident where somebody like hit us or bumped us in the back or whatever. Maybe we bumped somebody in the back looking at a phone. But my concern is how it would be enforced and how would it be proven with all of what Senator Gavan just read out too. And I know the issues in the past have been about would some law enforcement use this as an excuse to stop some people just because. So I agree with Senator Gavan in the practicability of it. I don't know how it could be truly enforced, and it would just be one person's word against another. And you know how the windows are darkened in so many cars now. That's the only thing. But I'm all about safe driving for sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. With that being said, I'd move for favorable. Second, Senator Smitherman will move for favorable, and I'll second his motion. Yes, ma'am.
Now, have you spoken with law enforcement to find out about enforcing this?
Have not.
All right. With that being said, we got a motion for favorable.
And I will vote to pass it out, Mr. Chairman, in honor of your son.
Thank you, Senator Pickers. Got a first and a second. Holly, if you'll call the roll.
Senator Albritton? Senator Bell? Senator Carnley? Senator Coleman Madison? Senator Elliott? Senator Figures? Senator Gavan? Senator Orr? Senator Singleton? Senator Smitherman? Senator Stutz? Senator Weaver? Senator Barfoot?
Aye. All right.
Into one.
Bill is amended, is given favorable report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members.
Appreciate you sharing your story today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, Senator Van, you're next on the list for, I think we've had this bill in here 3, maybe 4 times. So,
Yeah, I still haven't read it.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Smitherman.
I just want to say that I'm familiar with this bill. There's I think the LI bill. Is the correct thing? Law Institute. It's just Law Institute bill, right?
Excuse me?
Is it Law Institute?
Yeah, it is a law institute.
Yeah, I've had the honor to sit in and listen at the lawyers work on this and discuss it in, the aspects of it and consideration that they given in all areas. I think is very good to address some problems that have arisen. And so I wanted to just say at the proper time, if he doesn't, I'll move in favor of myself. I'm not trying to stop anybody else from concerns or questions, but I know this bill. I sat there and looked at the committee work on it, and they vetted this bill real good.
There's a motion for favorable by Senator Smitherman. Question.
We do have an amendment.
Okay, Senator Coleman Madison, you had a question on the bill itself, or do you want to talk about the amendment that he's going to offer?
Well, I don't know what the amendment is, but I have a question. I have a question about the bill. Just overall, general. Senator, last week, I think it was last week, I asked if you had short synopsis of kind of like what this bill, and you said that you did have it, but you didn't bring it. Because my concern, is it in here?
It's in there.
Because my concern is how this is going to impact the local. We've talked about this, the nonprofits, and what does it mean for them? And so I'm trying to wrap my brain around that. Could you kind of just briefly?
So yes, overall, what we're doing, as I mentioned before, and even back when we did the first bill where we changed our corporate law, we're keeping up with the Joneses. We're keeping up with Delaware specifically, and bringing our nonprofits in line with them. There are a number of things that are left open in our current nonprofit code that are addressed now in our new business code, and a lot of those blanks are being filled in, so to speak. And there's a lot of parallels that are now there to put them in conformity, many of the provisions in conformity with some of the things that we address, such as conversions in the Corporate Act and LLC Act and whatnot. And some of the things are just technical changes in terms of the overall business code. And it's, again, trying to get all this stuff aligned where when you look up at the beginning of the section where you talk about, setting up a corporation across the board, that it then ties in, or a business entity, I should say, not just a corporation, that it ties in and the language matches up throughout the entire business and nonprofit entity code. There is one particular issue that a business group has objected to, and it is not in current law. this particular, it relates to proxy voting by directors. I personally don't believe in that. Don't think it's wise. Don't know why you'd want to do it, but apparently some people think it's wonderful. So what we've agreed to do is just be silent on it. So that's something I have committed to amend on the floor should this come out of committee, and just take that out. And so those that want to do it, they won't be barred from doing it. We're not necessarily blessing it, but we're not barring it. So we're leaving again in a gray area. But I think that's the compromise that the drafters and the business entity reached out to. I did get a particular group gave me all the breakdowns. It was like 30-something pages. But I mean, what I was really looking for is not, will this change from, X to Y, but this is going to be hard. This is a particular provision that's going to be hard on small, entities. But, because like I said, this would, or not today, but previously, this would cover every homeowners association out there. Some homeowners associations don't have a lot of money, to pay lawyers. So, what I would be open to if we wanted to have a delayed date for applicability to smaller company or, well, I don't know that we can break them down by size, but, that's something I'd be open to on the floor. But I would like to get this out of committee today because of the calendar and where we are, to get it to where it's eligible to go on the floor and we can work out any of these particular differences and maybe get some specific concerns about what these small entities have as opposed to a 32-page that just lists everything that's different, because everything that's different the conversion section, if a small company is going to convert, well, right now, I don't think they can do that, but this would allow that. So there's going to be changes in there. Just because they're changes, they're not bad, but or onerous. But I think the concern is that if they change, they're not governed by it in terms of their documents. The concern that's been raised to me specifically, Senator, is that if no matter how small the change in your bylaws, let's say you wanted to change your number of directors from 3 to 5, that if you do that, or if you do that in your articles of incorporation, that then your entire articles and entire bylaws have to be up to snuff with the new code. And that's where a lot of the rub is coming from.
Yeah, this is it's a lot, and I'm just, because I look at organizations like the American Red Cross or Heart Association or others. These are nonprofits. We don't think about them, and they do a lot of good in the community. And so I just wanted to make sure that whatever changes that somehow that we try to get this out, or because I'm not sure, even in reading all of this, that I quite understand it. Not just the smaller ones, they may not be impacted by it at all because they're not large conglomerates, but there are a lot of community agencies that will be impacted.
Thank you. You have a first by Senator Smitherman, second by Senator Gavan. Any other questions or comments on? Excuse me, Luke. Let's get on the Senator Smitherman. I'm going to hold off on that first, and your second. Let's talk about the amendment now. Senator Gavan.
Okay, gosh. The first one is in your. Excuse me. The first one in your package. I got to jump all the way to line 5,666. Okay, so really what we're doing is just adding in that section in the savings provisions, the repeal of this statute. I'm going to kind of put it where it fits in. The repeal of this of a statute by this chapter does not affect the application of Article 16 of Chapter 20, title to any officer and qualified entity as such terms are defined in that title. I don't know what the uniqueness is of that, but I would, that's something that ALI came up with. So I would move for adoption of the amendment.
I have a motion by Senator Gavan, second by Senator Smitherman for the adoption of that amendment. Any opposition using previous rule? And Senator Gavan, I suspect you want to be added to that.
Yes.
Any opposition using previous rule? That amendment is adopted unanimously. Second amendment, I think Senator Van, it's in the package. Is that your amendment as well?
That came in with, again, from ALI. So on, let's see. Oh, no, they got a couple of places there.
I think that actually goes to the companion bill. It's not for the SB.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Oh, that's right. I think that did slip in.
Okay.
All right, so let's ignore that. I'm not offering that. I'll withdraw that. And then, so before Senator, I guess we go back to.
Senator Smitherman, you had a motion for adoption of final motion for favorable report as amended. Is that correct? And Senator Van, you had the second on that. Any questions or discussions as on the bill as amended? Any opposition using previous roll, adding Senator Gavan as a yes vote on there? Hearing no opposition, the bill is given a favorable report. I want to say thank you to Senator Smitherman for engaging in that and being a part of that. Because quite honestly, just because you have a law degree doesn't mean that you understand the practical effects of that. So I'm appreciative of you being involved throughout the course of that. And then Senator Gavan, I think third or fourth time being on the committee. So I know you've put a lot of work into. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, on the committee for itself, so we actually are there from jump to end.
Good. I'm glad somebody's paying attention. Thank y'all. All right, bill's given favorable report. Next bill on the calendar is SB 106, Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Originally, we were going to hold up on this bill. This bill would require municipal courts to enter certain information into the court system. Senator Orr had a similar bill, and we've been trying to work this out with the clerks. I think the county clerks or municipal clerks, circuit clerks have an issue with it, and we've been waiting. But let me tell you the intent of this bill. We have had these different cases of bills that come up because somebody has been let out, or you've been in jail and they let you out, but you've got another case somewhere else. You've got another charge somewhere else. You let the person out and they go out and commit something, but you don't know if there were communication or if information was listed, whereas it is a centralized location where any municipality would be alerted to go in there and check, and you would know that this person is in jail, in custody, they're about to be let out, then you can go pick them up or what have you. And basically what it boiled down to, as I talked with the representative for this, was the fact that it's a matter of transportation. And I do understand that's an issue. It's a matter of cost in transporting. You may have to transport them from one county to another, and maybe a county in between. That becomes an issue. But if the person goes out and commits a crime, and it's caused a loss of life or property or what have you, that's a loss. So I guess it's something that we're going to have to weigh. I would like to try to go ahead and Senator Orr, if you want to jump in and have any comments, but I'd like to try to get out to see if we can't come together, because as of yet, the clerks have not come back and say, okay, this is what we can do.
Okay.
I mean,
Senator Smithman had a comment, I think, and Senator Orr.
yeah, but that was.
No, either chairman. I just going to fake you and let you finish.
That's fine, I'm finished.
Okay, all right. What I think one of the issues is because of cost. And what she was saying, that I've heard that numerous times. And I don't have an amendment or anything, but I think that the lack of a better word, it could be county, state, whatever, but the entity that this person need to be transferred to, that entity need to bear the expenses. This gives them the notice. But I think one of the big things with the counties was that they would be sitting in their jails. They've got to pay the cost of them every day. They're not being reimbursed. So I think that it probably needs to say that after notification of a certain length of time, that they need to come get them, and if not, then whatever else. I'm not saying whatever else ought to be. But I think that was one of the things that people came to me on that side of it and said. So I don't know, but I'm just saying to you, that was one of the things of holding them for an extended length of time once the notice is given to the other people that they want them, and then what do? They don't get reimbursed. And it may be in the bill to reimbursement. He can tell us more, I'm sure, that she can too. But if it's not any kind of reimbursement that is in stature, then I think that's one of the concerns that you have on that side of the coin. I agree with the bill, and I'm gonna vote for it because you need to know that there's some person running around out here,
Right.
Yeah, but I just wanted to share that.
You and I are on the same page, I think, about some of that, and I'm going to have a discussion. I've got another comment on another bill, and we'll kind of tag in with this too. Senator Orr.
I appreciate Senator bringing the bill. This goes back to the Brookwood bill that we passed last year, and we do run into some resistance when it comes to municipal clerks wanting to plug into the state judicial system computer network. And the problem that creates is that judges at the district court level or circuit court level can't access readily the municipal infractions that people may have of a domestic dispute or this or that. When it comes to sentencing and reviewing the past criminal history of someone, they're somewhat flying blindly with any municipal convictions at the municipal level and charges. So appreciate her bringing it, all behind it, all for it, and think we certainly need to get them on board and not leave them on as an island out there. And all the judiciary, including the municipals, don't know what's going on with particular defendants and what their past history is.
And I would agree 100% with that. In my comments, I was going to reserve them, but I will say, to your point, you may have a domestic violence situation in, say, Huntsville. Montgomery may have that same individual that's been brought up in Montgomery, and certainly they could check Alicourt for statewide data on the statewide database for convictions. But rarely do you see, if ever, in my experience in the municipal courts, that anybody has access to other municipal court information, and that's a problem. And so, Senator Bell.
Main thing I'm asking, this bill is just about entering information, correct? Okay, and that's what I was looking at. And I guess here's one thing I guess look forward in the future. In municipal courts, you have multiple different types of software that nobody's using the same thing like they are in Alicourt. And I think the transmitting problem may be more the issue than what they're using. And it would be good, maybe it's something we can study later, to get all the municipal courts on the same software, the same program, so each is communicating with Alicourt, because right now that don't happen. And I think they have to go through the NCIC and enter the stuff that way. But unless I know of a place that's not, I think most places are entering the information. They just using different software companies or software systems to connect and go back and forth with the state. I just think that's, if we're going to do this, something we need to look at next year is maybe trying to bring the municipal courts, figure out if we can get with them about one software or two software, something that communicates better with Alicourt.
Yeah, I think there's only a couple municipalities that are on Alicourt now that utilize that. I think Prattville is one of those, but Senator Smith.
I was just going to ask you, I always get these initials mixed up. It's RP. What's a RP when you're trying to, you send it out for people to bid on something? RF. Yeah, I think that in that it ought to be a uniform standard. Even if you don't box out these different companies because they want to make money versus locking us into just one group that does it there. Yeah. But I think that that ought to be the same. If the company, to do what he was just saying, if they want to keep these other people, they got to be able to provide the same hookup like he was just saying there. So I just wanted to put that out there, but, so that these people wouldn't feel like we were trying to not let them do whatever they do with their municipality, business people.
Sure.
But at the same time, they got to come across with the same, with codes or whatever you call it, to make everybody be able to hook in to each other.
Senator Singleton.
Well, I hear that, but a lot of small systems, those systems cost a lot of money. Unless we're going to make that a funded mandate instead of unfunded mandate, we can't tell them what to do, because some of them would have just bought these systems, and those systems are really expensive. And so we asked them to try to come uniform, and they've just bought something else. They can't afford, basically, because some of them are paying maintenance fees on these systems as it go along to be able to enter this information. And so we either going to, if we're going to do that, we need to make sure we put a funded mandate to do that, to bring everybody under the same umbrella.
Good point. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
You've got a pen. Senator Cole Madison.
Mr. Chairman, well, we all recognize and I think understand that there is a problem and there's a void there. So I don't know, there are more learned people around this table and deal with this on a daily basis, but we do realize that this is a problem. And Mr. Chairman, and maybe you can recommend, or someone on this committee can recommend, how we can all bring everybody together. And again, look at maybe a funding source, because this impacts law enforcement and safety of the entire state of Alabama. We pass laws, law enforcement people are out there working, and I've often said, I remember when I worked for City of Birmingham, when police communications were not on the same frequency. So you commit a crime in Birmingham, you run to Homewood or Fairfield, you couldn't call the adjacent police because, you were not on the same frequency. That has all changed. So this is where we are now, but we understand that criminals work in between, and they're a whole lot smarter than we are when it comes down to technology sometimes. So I'm open to suggestions. I understand that this bill is not ready because we don't want to pass something, and I'm not about passing bad bills. So let's try to, if anybody has any suggestions, but I just want municipal clerks to understand, and I think they do understand, that it is an issue that we need to try to address, and I'm asking them to come to the table to help us to find out what we can do.
Well, let me say this, and you're certainly the bill sponsor, so you get whatever your desire is on the bill. I don't think this bill goes in the direction that there may be some concerns that we all agree on, but there may be some concerns on. I think this is just entering the data in the existing system that they have.
That's all this is.
And so I would, I'm supportive of the bill. I think the general consensus is that we.
Yeah, and we'll just have to come back and deal with the other issue. But right now, if it's in the system, maybe there's some way that, because somebody's going to be able to retrieve it.
Yeah, and I know Alicourt now has a pilot system that they're working on, I think, for municipalities, and I don't know where that's at in that process, but I know there are a couple of municipalities that are tagged in. But I think, as I understand your bill, it's simply doing what I thought courts were already doing, is putting that information
exactly
in their own database, whatever they have. So
exactly, and if it's not there, you never will be able to retrieve it.
True.
So I still think that it's valid in that respect, that you should have some source that you can retrieve it in a timely manner.
Is it your desire to?
My desire is to go ahead and move it out of committee.
Okay. We've got a motion for favorable, Senator Cole Madison, second by Senator Orr. Any opposition using previous roll, which was unanimous? Hearing none, the bill is given favorable report. Thank you, Senator Cole Madison. All right, moving right along. Now we're on, I don't have my SB 316 by Senator Figures. Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me say thank you to all of the senators. This is a bill that was actually co-sponsored by every senator that was in Montgomery, except Senator Kelly. He was in D.C. getting an award. So thank you for that. This bill would specify that an individual under 21 years of age commits a violation for the possession of an electronic nicotine delivery system without regard to whether the electronic nicotine delivery system contained or was used in combination with an e-liquid, a tobacco product, or other substance. The penalty for this bill is basically to bring awareness to our community, awareness to the parents of us getting to an epidemic stage of our children who are using these vaping devices. And we're losing our kids prematurely. It's estimated that we're going to lose over 100,000 kids in the next 10 years prematurely because of them vaping and how it damages their brains, their lungs, their bodies. So it's not to criminalize a child. It is to make sure that they get the help that they need. And what it says that when an authority finds that they're in possession of these devices, they will merely contact their parents. And as I said, we just want them to get the help that they need so that we can get a handle on this situation. Mr. Chairman, I do have an amendment for this bill. When it was initially drafted, there was certain language that was put in here that definitely described all of these various ways of the vaping, and it was inadvertently taken out. So this amendment actually puts them back in, and it just says it replaces line 52 on page 2 with the following. You all have a copy of this amendment as well. Tobacco product, an electronic nicotine delivery system, and these are the words that are added back in, or other electronic battery-powered device capable of being used to deliver any e-liquid substitute, tobacco, CBD oil, THC oil, herbal extract, or nicotine salt, or any analog thereof, or any other substance to the individual through the inhalation of vapor or an. So I'd like to offer this amendment using previous row
First by
objection.
Thank you. First, Senator Figures, second by Senator Van. No, any opposition to adopting the amendment using previous rule? Yes, ma'am.
Just occurred to me at some high schools, and I don't know which one, but some high schools actually have smoking sections for high schoolers. Well, maybe not now.
That's probably something we need to take up with the Alabama Department of Education.
You know, I'm just looking at 21 because you got a lot of kids.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, they do.
What school?
Maybe it's in California.
Well, this is
California.
actually one of the number one problems in all of our school systems, and they're saying that it's vaping and social media.
Well, there again, he said if it's a
Yeah.
problem in the school system, so we do have smoking in our schools.
Where they're doing it, whether there's a designated area or not.
Bathrooms, a lot of times you'll.
Yeah. Maybe the kids are making a designated area, but it hasn't been authorized. Let me put it that way, Senator.
Got somebody on the watch out too,
Yes.
around the corner.
I've got a first by Senator Van, Senator Figures, second by Senator Van on the amendment. Any opposition using previous rule? Hearing none, that amendment is adopted. Back on the bill.
Now, Mr. Chairman, we can adopt the bill first, but I have a special guest here who came all the way from Mobile, Mrs. Virginia Guy. She is the executive director of Mobile Drug Education Council, and she asked me to sponsor this bill because of my past with the Clean Indoor Air Act. And actually, I was a previous board member on the Drug Education Council some years ago. So if she could just if we could give her a couple of minutes, and she really puts it in context as to how serious this problem is, I would appreciate it.
Ms. Guy, can you give us some information about the importance of this bill and what this bill does to maybe address those concerns?
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I'm Virginia Guy. I'm the Executive Director of the Drug Education Council. We have offices in Mobile and Baldwin counties. We also provide programs in Washington, Monroe, Escambia, Conecuh, and Clark counties as well. In recent months, we have witnessed an alarming surge in the number of minors who are vaping. A reported 20% of high school students in Alabama admit to vaping daily, and Alabama has the nation's third highest percentage of people who vape. The numbers are rapidly increasing among middle school and seeing children as young as 7 and 8 years old beginning to vape. Vaping by minors can lead to serious health issues. These include permanent lung damage, addiction, anxiety and depression, and exposure to cancer-causing chemicals. Vaping is the single biggest youth drug issue that our organization is currently facing. I want to thank the Senate for taking action to address underage vaping. I'm very appreciative of Senator Figures for her leadership on this issue, and I'm overwhelmed by the fact that every single senator co-sponsored this bill that will ban possession of vaping devices by minors. We are not looking to criminalize our youth, as the senator pointed out, but to educate and to get them the help that they need and to get these devices out of their hands. So this is what this bill will do. By passing Senate Bill 316, this body is moving the state of Alabama into a leadership role in addressing this national health crisis. So on behalf of all of the children of Alabama, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you.
Senator Figures.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move a favorable report for SB 316.
Have a motion for
previous
favorable, Senator Figures, a second by Senator Weaver. Any opposition using previous role? Hearing none, that bill is given a favorable report, unanimous favorable report. Thank you so much, Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee.
All right, Senator Bell, SB 320.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This bill come from the trip to the border that I was honored to take. In talking to Border Patrol and Homeland Security down there, when a illegal alien comes across the border, they're fingerprinting them and doing a DNA swab. And what they told us was the problem they're having is if they don't have good fingerprints, have good DNA, these people are coming back across the border 2 and 3 times committing crimes under different names. And their request was we need to do a better job on a database statewide of the illegal aliens to track. An example was in Talladega County, there was a murder case being tried. And one of the witnesses said, you have him actually charged under the wrong name. And DA Giddens said, well, tell me about that. He thought the woman didn't know what she was talking about. His name is really so-and-so, and he's not wanted for murder in California. So after the conviction in Talladega County, they checked, got his DNA, did a DNA sample from the person out in California, and found that he had 4, 5, 6 different aliases. But for that DNA, they'd have never connected him to the murder out in California, and that's the issue there.
Seems to tie pretty well with what Senator Coleman Madison was talking about in her bill earlier. Senator Smitherman.
Favorable report.
Motion for favorable by Senator Smitherman.
I've got an amendment. I need an amendment.
I would hold that.
We'll come back. Let's talk about the
I think
amendment.
everybody's got a copy of the amendment, and the amendment is basically, after discussing with Angelo with Forensic Sciences, a couple changes. On lines 36 through 40, just fingerprints and DNA testing for cataloging. We will scratch lines 37 through 40. On line 46, fingerprints and a known DNA reference sample from the individual. We'd add the reference sample from the individual on it. And then line 49 through 58, be just to submit the fingerprints to the Alabama State Law Enforcement Agency for cataloging, and shall submit the known DNA reference sample to the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences for analysis and entry into the appropriate database.
Thank you. Senator Singleton, question or comment?
How we define aliens? Are you using the federal rule on aliens?
Yes, sir.
Still think it just identify brown people.
I know, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
I have to say, I almost
Figures.
didn't sign on as a co-sponsor because of that. And Senator Bell explained to me, well, this is the federal, okay.
All right. Senator Smitherman, did you want to be the first on that amendment?
Yeah, I renewed.
Okay, that's on the amendment. Second by Senator Bell. Any opposition on the amendment to using previous role? Hearing none, that amendment is adopted. Back on the bill, Senator Bell, any questions or comments then regarding the bill itself?
Favorable.
Got a motion for favorable, Senator Smitherman, second by Senator Bill on the bill. Any opposition using previous role? Senator Singleton would like to be a no on that. We're going to add Senator Elliott to the roll. That will give the bill as amended a favorable report. Thank you so much, Senator Singleton. Senator Singleton. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, thank you, Senator Bell. All right. Next is HB 131. We've got Senator Gavan's going to handle this, I think, for Representative Kitchen. Senator Bell. Senator Gavan. I'm all messed up this morning. Yeah.
Well, we've passed this before. That Mr. Chairman had a concern about one of the the 6-month provision in there. So I do have an amendment to be changed here. And we talked about handling that on the floor before with my bill. I just chose not to move my bill. This is on the Jimmy Spencer loophole, which is in Marshall County. So I always intended on passing Representative Kitchen's bill. So at this point in time, I would move for adoption of the amendment that's in the package.
Yeah, let me talk about the amendment. So you've got a first on the amendment, I'll get a second on the amendment. My concern on that, and the reason that we talked about that amendment is kind of things tie together, right? I mean, when we talked about folks not communicating, I have seen individuals who, as an example, may have had a DUI, which is punishable by up to a year, depending on, misdemeanor DUI, punishable by up to a year, may have been arrested for that, pending trial. They've taken in DOC for some other incident or reason, served their time in DOC, gotten out, and 2 or 3 years later, maybe get arrested on the street where we get pulled over for a ticket and they have this warrant out for them. And it's a lack of communication between districts. It's a lack of communication between or resources or communications. And I didn't want, especially at the municipal level, where I think there's a bigger problem there with misdemeanors. I didn't want a misdemeanor to be an impediment to an individual who might be otherwise eligible for parole. So I think this amendment addresses that and takes those misdemeanors out of that. So I'm supportive of that. Senator Gavann's amendment, first on that. I'll second that. Senator Smitherman.
I was getting ready, before you explain that amendment, to ask the question about that, because that's a concern I have. You know, you got somebody who obviously they think should be eligible for parole based on the situations that they're in, and then you come up with somebody that's got an illegal turn, and here it is, you tell them they can't get parole because they didn't get a signal on the turn. So you have to be careful. That is a broad statement that said dispose of any offense. That's anything. That can be from loitering, picking up paper. That could be loitering. That could be anything that's going to stop something of that nature, And so I think the way you're talking, I haven't analyzed it, but if that amendment takes those misdemeanors like that out, and and I'm just going to say this to you, I don't have no problem if they kept the amendment in misdemeanor domestic violence. You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't have no problem if that was left here. If that was something like that, something physical with somebody, doing something like that to somebody. But just regular stuff because you driving an automobile and you just not driving it right or something like that, I don't think that should hinder somebody in terms of their actual behavior toward people if they have an opportunity to be eligible for that. So that amendment, I think it does. I think it's a good amendment.
Thank you. So we got a first and second on the amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Any opposition using previous rule? Hearing none, the amendment's adopted. Senator Singleton wants to be added back on that as a yes on the amendment. Back on the bill itself, Senator Gavan. Senator, I need more coffee today. Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a little confused when it said this bill would prohibit a prisoner who has been charged with a new offense. How are they going to, unless it's an offense that was done inside the prison on someone, how could it be a new offense?
And I think that's where I don't know how it would be a new offense other than in prison, because that's where they are.
Right.
I guess depend on if they're up for parole, particularly, you would presumably they've been there more than a year, unless I take that back. There's a situation where someone could already be out on parole, they got violated, and in between the time they were released and picked back up, that they committed a new or charged with a new offense then. So that's the other opportunity there, is that they got put out, got arrested again, and then got revoked.
But you're talking about pardons and parole, which is kind of different from just.
Well, let me give you another scenario in addition to what Senator Gavan talked about a new offense. you could be in DOC custody. You have up to a year on a misdemeanor. And of course, we've adopted that amendment, but you have up to a year on a misdemeanor to actually go and sign a deposition to issue a warrant. There are people who, for various reasons, wait. And so it may not be a, quote, new offense, but they have just been charged with that offense. So I think that's also plays into that.
So maybe rather than saying a new offense, just say offense or another offense, because the word new means recent. I mean,
I would presume that's to keep them from being delayed on what they were convicted for, because there's got to be something in addition to that.
thank
All right.
you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. We've got a motion for favorable by Senator Van. Senator Weaver, second on that. Any opposition using previous roll? Hearing none, the bill is given a favorable report. Thanks so much. I think last bill on the calendar is HB 287, Representative Stringer. Thanks so much, Representative Stringer. Tell us about 287.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman, members. 287 is a doxing bill. Carried this bill 2 years ago, passed 100% bipartisan out of the House. I came across this across doxing approximately 2 years ago. My son's a Baldwin County Sheriff's deputy. Middle of the night, he was sitting at a closed service station doing a report on his computer. His dispatch called and said that he needed to move to a different location. So he left. He asked her what was going on. Find out that someone had posted on their Facebook page that there was a deputy sitting at this service station if someone wanted to do something. And we get to researching it and looking into the guy, and the guy was a white supremacist out of Escambia County, and pretty much everybody on his page was the same. So I start looking into it, and I find out that doxing is putting public information out with intent to cause harm, and it's starting to become more of a problem across the country. There was a judge up in New Jersey that was doxed. Someone went to her house, and when her son opened the door, they shot and killed her son. Her husband ran in, they shot her husband. There was a judge doxed in California where they put the judge's address out there because of a decision he had made. A person went to that house and killed that judge. There was a judge in Texas this happened to. There was recently a legislator in a different state that was involved in some legislation, and they went and spray painted his house and damaged his property. But it's becoming more of a problem across the country than we've ever seen. Once the bill passed out of the House 2 years ago, it came to the Senate and it timed out. We just run out of time with it. And then last year I didn't have time, but open to answer any questions if anybody's interested.
Senator Smitherman and then Senator Figures.
Van was before me, and then
Yeah.
I just move favorable report.
Got a motion for favorable. Senator Van.
So my concern with this is simply on the wording. I support your bill.
Yes, sir.
But you talk about work address in there. And look, our Montgomery address, or we have a local office, those addresses are fine. Remember, we're part-time public officials. I mean, the judge's work address is pretty clear. It's the courthouse.
Yep.
The governor's work address is pretty clear across the street. But what I don't want to do either is have, at my place of business, be targeted there, because that's just as, I'm more predictable there than I am at home.
Yep.
So that's something I'd like to work on and clarify that that's our official address as opposed to our day job.
Yes, and I agree with that, sir.
Senator Figures.
I was just going to say thank you for bringing this bill again. I understand that the crimes and offenses towards elected officials and people in position of authority, that the rate has gone up to 400% in the last 6 years. And so this is definitely needed. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Figures. I'd say along those lines is that committee members, I'd ask you to do your due diligence, look at a bill that I filed yesterday that deals with judicial privacy, kind of tags along with what you're talking about here. So I'd ask for you to give good consideration of that when that comes back up or when that comes on the agenda. Any other questions or comments on HB 287? All right, I'll move for favorable report.
I'll change then. I'll second it.
Senator Smitherman moves for favorable report. I'll second that. Any opposition using previous roll, which was unanimous? Hearing none, bill's given favorable report. Thank you, Representative Stringer.
Thank you, Chairman.
I believe we're at the end of the agenda today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Meeting's adjourned.